Hello, mindful friends. Today we're talking about feeling that we are worthy of love and how that feeling in ourselves also helps us to love others better. And many of us can feel quite the opposite of this, right? That we put expectations on or requirements for our worthiness of being loved. And I like to kind of equate this to hustling for love, hustling for acceptance. And we all know that feeling of when we're striving so hard to be loved by doing things just right, by accomplishing just the right things, by saying just the right things. Even, if it fits into our beliefs or our values of like, are we doing enough to contribute and to make change in the world and to be advocates for the planet? And we put these pressures on ourselves, like we can't be enough and we can't be loved unless we're doing all of these things. And it comes with a lot of judgment on self, that if we're not doing enough, then we judge and we look at all of our downfalls and we look at all the places that we're falling short. And it makes it really hard for us to rest back into love and acceptance of self. And what this ends up turning into is that same pressure and the need to hustle for love and acceptance that we put on self, we also project onto others. So if we are holding ourselves to really high expectations, then we turn around, and if the people around us aren't living up to their potential, or they aren't working hard enough, or they aren't saying the right things, or dressing the right way, or believing the right faith, we put the pressure on them that they have to hustle for our love. And now they are not worthy of our acceptance because they don't practice their faith in the right way, or they don't do it like we think it should be done. And we have these high expectations on ourselves that then we also are holding other people to. And when we get into this cycle, it's exhausting and it hurts. And it hurts self and hurts the people around us. So to shift this and to change our perspective so that it's more nurturing and more helpful is to remember our worthiness of love in each and every moment. And no matter, what we're accomplishing, or if we're perfect, or if we do everything right, that has nothing to do with the fact that we're all worthy of love. And when we can settle into that, it creates this ease within us and this peace within us that kind of brings that relaxation and opens us up to actually start showing up in more loving ways in the world, and helps us to start more easily being the best version of ourselves, because we're not always condemning ourselves and judging ourselves and being hard on ourselves, because that's really tiring and it leaves you fatigued, it leaves you on edge, it leaves you judgmental, and it turns into you not being such a kind person out in the world. Whereas if you see that, no matter what I'm doing, I can be loved, that love opens you up to being able to see what needs to be nurtured within you and cared for. And when you're taking care of that, you come to a place where you're healthier and more balanced and more stable and settled. And when you're in that state, you show up and can offer a lot more to the world in a really authentic way. And when you're there and you are feeling good and you're feeling nurtured and you're feeling loved, now it's just this like energy within you that's much easier to share out with the world, because you're not hurting within and you're not fighting that judgment of self within. So then when other people around you are needing love, or they're feeling imperfect, or they're maybe, in the eyes of some, not living up to expectation, or not doing the things in the right way that we would maybe, project, it's easier to love them too, because you've already done it for yourself. And you're not in a place of judgment of self that projects onto them. And when they start feeling loved just for who they are, and that they don't have to meet these expectations or be performing or show up in a very specific way in order to get your love, it also nourishes them. And it also brings a peace into them. And it brings this ease that I'm not having to fight for my love. I'm not having to fight for my worthiness. I'm not having to hustle my, my authentic self and hustle to meet your expectations. And that ease within them does the same thing, that now they're opened up to start thriving and just coming back into their true self and living with that love and blossoming in it, versus fighting for it and creating more of that judgment. So this shift that we create, and sometimes, and I even as I'm saying this, I feel it in myself of like, but yeah, we should have goals and we should have expectations, and that's what pushes us forward. But there's a difference between placing the worthiness and the love on the meeting of those goals and the healthy having of those goals. So the healthy way of having goals and moving forward and progressing is, I love you and you're worthy of love through this whole process, not just when you arrive, but you're worthy now and you're enough to be loved now. And we really all are worthy of love in these moments. And it doesn't take away the progress. It doesn't take away having the goals or the forward movement. It takes away the angst, the judgment, and the frustration in the process. So it says, you can be working towards this, but I love you all the way. You don't have to wait for it until I get there. And when we do that with self, that looks like, yes, I have these intentions of growth, of personal growth. I have goals I'm working towards, but I can love myself as I am right now as I work towards that. I'm worthy of love now. And that cuts back on the negative self-talk and that defeatism that ends up kind of propelling our negative habits forward and further and making them stronger, because those negative habits are based on a negative relationship to self. So if that relationship to self is really healthy all the way through, it actually becomes much easier to meet those goals. It becomes much easier to progress because you're doing it out of love and care. And it's the same for other people. If they're hustling to get your approval and they're waiting to feel any kind of acceptance and love until they have arrived, that kind of angst and fear and walking on eggshells makes the process for them a lot harder. Whereas if you're loving them through the process and saying, you're worthy of love now, even if you don't get there or you don't achieve that, you're still worthy of love. And the ease that that brings to the process helps them to move through it in a much more healthy, authentic, peaceful way, and will actually make those goals easier to achieve. So I invite you this week to look at some of those things that you're wanting to move towards, some of those goals, and ask yourself, am I waiting to be worthy of love until that moment? And if so, try to shift it and say, I'm worthy of love now, and I can love myself through the whole process, and see how that eases the journey towards your next growth step. If you enjoy these little talks and would like to join us for a group session or individual coaching, please visit us at newleafmindfulness.com. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and share. I hope to see you all very soon.